They say dolls don't move, but mine does. At first, I thought it was just my imagination until I started hearing it breathe. Every night, it gets a little louder, a little closer, and now I don't know if I'll survive tonight. If you've ever felt something watching you at night, stay with me. This story might explain everything. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell because you'll want to know what happens next. When I moved into the house, it didn't feel haunted, just old. The kind of quiet that settles into your bones. My grandmother left it to me after she passed, and even though I hadn't seen her in years, there was something comforting about being back. Familiar in a way. The floors creaked like they always had. The smell of dust and aged wood hit me as soon as I opened the door, but it felt like a place that remembered me. I spent the first couple of days unpacking, cleaning, exploring every corner of the place like I was stepping back into some half-forgotten dream. That's when I found it. I was up in the attic looking for old photo albums. The light up there barely worked. It flickered once, then held steady, casting long shadows across boxes and broken furniture. In the corner beneath a stained sheet was an old toy chest. It didn't belong to me. I don't remember ever seeing it before, but something about it pulled me in. I lifted the lid, and there it was, the doll. At first glance, it looked delicate, fragile. A porcelain face with hair the color of ash, tied back with a faded red ribbon. Its dress was old-fashioned, lacy, like something from the 1800s. But the thing that caught me most were the eyes. Glass, too human, too still. They had this way of catching the light and holding it, like they were waiting, watching. One side of its face was cracked, just a thin spiderweb line like it had been dropped once. And yet, despite everything, it felt oddly familiar. Nostalgic. I told myself it was probably one of my grandmother's old collectibles. Harmless. So I brought it downstairs and set it on the shelf in the hallway. I didn't think twice. I should have. Absolutely. Here's the next section, written in the same cinematic, first-person, and conversational tone. At first, it was just little things, subtle enough that I could explain them away. I'd walk past the hallway shelf and swear the doll was facing a slightly different angle than before. Nothing dramatic, just off. Like maybe I bumped the table without realizing, or maybe the house had settled and shifted it. You know how old houses are. Things creak, they move, they breathe. One night I was lying in bed, scrolling through my phone like usual, when I thought I heard something. Faint. Barely there. A soft, rhythmic sound, like someone exhaling slowly right next to my ear. I paused, held my breath, waited. Nothing. Dead silence. So I laughed at myself, called it wind through the vents, and went back to whatever dumb video I was watching. But I didn't sleep well. I kept waking up, feeling like someone was standing just outside my room. The next morning, I walked past the hallway again, and I swear, the doll was now sitting upright. I had left it leaning slightly because of how the shelf sloped, but now it was perfectly straight, centered, balanced, like someone had come and fixed it. I stared at it longer than I should have, that strange feeling rising in my chest again. I told myself I was being ridiculous. I even said it out loud. It's just a doll. But then it happened again, and again. Every morning, something just a little different. A tilt of the head, the hands resting in a new position. Once I found it with its eyes pointing directly at the bedroom door. That's when I stopped joking about it. I didn't touch it, I didn't move it, I just kept walking. Because part of me was starting to wonder if it had moved all on its own. So glad you're enjoying it. Here's the next section, continuing with the same natural cinematic flow. I started keeping my door shut at night. Locked even. Which felt stupid, like I was afraid of a toy. But something had changed in the house. The air felt heavier, like it was pressing in on me, especially after dark. And the breathing? It wasn't my imagination. It got louder, more deliberate, like it was moving closer, inch by inch, every night. I tried telling myself it was just old pipes or the wind or my own paranoia, but that only worked until I started hearing it right outside my door. I'd lie still, holding my breath, listening. It would start soft, just barely audible, then swell into this slow, raspy sound, like lungs that hadn't breathed in years were struggling to remember how. Then nothing. Silence. Until the next night. The worst part? I never caught it happening. Not once. I tried staying awake, but every time I did, the house stayed quiet, like it knew I was listening. But the moment I let my guard down, dozed off even for a second, that's when I'd hear it again. Then the doll started appearing in different places. I'd come home from work and it wouldn't be on the shelf anymore. I'd find it in the kitchen, on the couch. Once I walked into the bathroom and it was sitting right there on the edge of the sink, facing the mirror. No one else had keys. No one had been over. I checked the locks. I checked the windows. I even started checking my own memory, wondering if I was the one moving it in some kind of half-sleep state. But deep down, I knew the truth. I wasn't moving the doll, and it wasn't waiting on the shelf anymore. It was exploring, watching, getting closer. You got it. Here's the next section, keeping the same style and intensity. The first time I tried to get rid of it, I didn't even hesitate. I grabbed a garbage bag, shoved the doll in, and tossed it in the dumpster behind the house like it was nothing. I didn't even look back. For a few hours, I actually felt better, lighter, like I could finally breathe again without that weird weight pressing down on me. That night was the first in weeks I didn't hear the breathing. No creaks, no whispers, just quiet until morning. I got up, walked into the hallway, and there it was, back on the shelf. Same position, same faint, cracked smile, like it had never left. My stomach dropped so hard I had to sit down. I checked the front door. Locked. Back door? Also locked. Windows? Closed. I stood there for 10 minutes, just staring at it, trying to convince myself maybe, I'd dreamed throwing it away. I hadn't, so I tried again. This time, I drove it across town, dumped it in a donation bin, and even watched a guy toss more bags on top of it. Gone. Done. I drove home feeling stupid but relieved. The next morning, it was in the kitchen, sitting at the table like it had been waiting for me. That's when I lost it. I took it outside, grabbed a hammer, and smashed it again and again until it was in pieces. Porcelain shattered, limbs cracked, glass eyes rolling across the pavement. I buried the remains in the woods behind the house. Deep. Far. But that night, the breathing came back, louder than ever. And this time, it didn't stop at the hallway. It was in the room with me. That's when I realized maybe it was never just the doll. Maybe something else had followed me home, loving the momentum we've built. Here's the next section, keeping the tone intimate, chilling, and immersive. I couldn't pretend anymore. Whatever was happening, it wasn't a dream, it wasn't stress, and it sure as hell wasn't just a creepy old toy. Something was wrong, and it wanted me to know it. So I started digging. At first, I looked up antique dolls, hoping maybe it was just a well-known haunted item or some prank someone had played. But the deeper I searched, the more disturbing things got. I found a photo. Online. Old, grainy, black and white. A girl standing in front of a fireplace with a doll in her arms. My doll. Same cracked porcelain face. Same empty smile. Same ribbon in the hair. The photo was dated over 70 years ago. I clicked through the article. Turns out the little girl disappeared. No forced entry, no trace. Just gone. The only thing they ever found was the doll, sitting on her bed, looking straight at the door. I kept going. Forum posts, local legends, even scanned pages from dusty library archives. It kept showing up. Different towns, different names. Always the same description, always the same ending. The doll arrives, people hear the breathing. Things escalate. And then someone vanishes. Every story ended the same way. That's when it hit me. This thing doesn't just haunt a house, it chooses someone, attaches itself, follows them, wears them down, like it feeds off their fear. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized what I saw. I hadn't slept in days. My skin was pale, my eyes were sunken. I was jumpy, paranoid. I'd started locking every door, sleeping with lights on, checking over my shoulder constantly. And yet, no matter what I did, I could still hear it breathing. Always closer, always watching. Thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Here's the next section, keeping the tension high and the atmosphere thick with dread. I thought maybe if I confronted it, stared it down, things would stop. Face my fear, take control. So one night, I stood in front of the doll, took a deep breath, and spoke to it like it was a person. I know what you are, I said, my voice shaking despite myself. I know what you want, and I'm not going anywhere. The room felt colder. My heart hammered in my chest as I kept my eyes on it. The doll just sat there, unnervingly still, staring back at me with those glass eyes. It didn't move, didn't make a sound. For a moment, I thought maybe I was crazy. Maybe I had imagined the whole thing. But then, the breathing started. Slow, steady, like someone's lungs had just come to life, desperate for air. It filled the room, vibrating in my chest, making my ears ring. And then I heard something else too, a soft rustling, like fabric brushing against the floor. My blood turned to ice. The doll's head, it twitched. Just the slightest movement, but it was enough. A faint crackle of porcelain echoed in the silence. I froze, unable to tear my eyes away. The doll's mouth, its mouth, was now barely open, as if it were about to speak. I reached for the door, heart racing, my legs shaking, but before I could move, the air in the room seemed to thicken. My breath caught in my throat as the pressure around me grew. The doll's eyes seemed to glow, shifting slightly as if they were narrowing in on me. Something primal in my gut screamed at me to run, to get out of there, but I couldn't. I was paralyzed, trapped. And then it happened. The breath wasn't just in the room anymore, it was right behind me. I spun around, but there was nothing there, only silence, and a growing sense of dread that I couldn't escape. That night sleep didn't come. Not for me. But something else. Something watched. I'm so glad you're enjoying this. Let's dive into the next section. I couldn't stay in that house anymore. I couldn't keep pretending I wasn't losing my mind. So I packed up, grabbed whatever I could, and made plans to leave. I thought about the doll one last time, wondering if it was still watching me, still sitting on that shelf, waiting for the next move. But when I went to check, when I walked into that hallway, it was gone. The shelf was empty. No doll, no sign it had ever been there. My heart pounded in my chest as I searched the room, my mind racing. Maybe I had finally imagined it all. Maybe it was all in my head. My exhaustion, the lack of sleep, the research that had driven me crazy. I checked the closets, the basement, the attic even, though I had a feeling I didn't want to know what I might find there. Nothing. I stood there for what felt like forever, trying to steady my breath. I had just made up my mind to leave the house, forget it all, just walk away, when I felt it. A cold breath on the back of my neck. The hairs on my arms stood straight. That same suffocating, icy feeling washed over me again, as though something was right there behind me. I spun around, heart racing, but once again, nothing. I felt my stomach twist into a knot. Something wasn't right. And then I realized the door wouldn't open. The front door, the one I knew I had locked, was now stuck. I tried to turn the knob, pulled, pushed. It wouldn't budge. Panic set in. My breath came faster. Sweat ran down my neck. And then I heard it. A soft rustle like fabric brushing against the floor. A slow, steady breath. I turned to look down the hallway, and there, in the darkness, I saw it. The doll. It was standing, right in the middle of the hallway, facing me, and I could hear its breath, getting closer. I froze, my blood turned to ice, and my heart stopped beating for a moment. The doll, it shouldn't have been there. Not in the middle of the hallway, not standing, not alive. The soft breath grew louder, more desperate, as though it was struggling to breathe through the cracks in its chest. I could see it, clearer now in the dim light, standing unnaturally still, its glass eyes glimmering with that same cold, empty stare. I took a step back, my hands shaking as I reached for my phone. The screen lit up, but the image didn't load. The call wouldn't go through. The connection was dead. It was just me and the doll. The air around me felt thick, suffocating, like the room was shrinking. My vision blurred, and for a moment I thought I might pass out. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The doll was closer now. Just a few feet away, its breath so loud I could feel it on my skin. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. My chest tightened with panic. I could feel it, something, coming. Something more than just the doll. Something dark, something ancient. Something that had been watching me, waiting for me to finally realize it wasn't just the doll. It was me. The doll took another step toward me, its porcelain feet making a sickening creak as it moved. The air grew colder, and just as I was about to run, I felt it. Its breath, cold and wet, right at my ear. Then the phone screen flickered and went black. I turned back to face the hallway. The doll was gone. But the breathing, it never stopped. If you made it this far, I need to know, what would you do? Leave a comment. And if you hear breathing tonight, check your shelf and don't forget to lock your door. Like, subscribe, and share, just in case someone else needs to hear this before it's too late.